There's so many inspirational entrepreneurs out there. Each one of them has an amazing story that's the stuff of fairy tales. These business people often come from humble backgrounds, but what sets them apart is their drive to succeed and their creative spirit. And some just have downright crazy success stories, or just eccentric billionaire stories. Let's take a look at some of the entrepreneurs who are famous for all the crazy things they have done and achieved. First up, the first lady of television, Oprah Winfrey. Actually, make that the queen of television. Oprah Winfrey is a fairy tale success story. She rose from humble and even troubled beginnings to become the media and business mogul that she is today. She started with literally nothing, and now Oprah Winfrey is one of the wealthiest African Americans of the 21st century, man or woman, and it goes without saying that she is certainly one of the most influential women in the world. She lives a life that most of us can only dream of. However, it wasn't always that easy for Oprah. She is the daughter of an unwed teenager who was a housemaid. She grew up in abject poverty and even suffered through sexual abuse as a child. Her break in the media came with a job at a local black radio station. Oprah's bosses were impressed with the way she spoke, and she worked her way up to a more popular radio station before landing a gig as a newsreader on television. After she successfully hosted a daytime Chicago local talk show, Robert Ebert offered Oprah a deal to sign for her very own daytime talk show, The Oprah Winfrey Show, and the rest, as they say, is history. The show became a sensation, and Winfrey soon replaced Donahue as the foremost American talk show. In a niche that was dominated by white men, here was a black woman absolutely killing it. Oprah's astronomical rise is the stuff of dreams. Her story tells young girls everywhere that it's possible for them to achieve their goals. But she isn't just a media personality. She is a savvy businesswoman and entrepreneur who has leveraged her popularity to rake in the millions. She owns a media and entertainment conglomerate and stakes in several businesses. And get this, her net worth is $2.5 billion US. And when we talk about entrepreneurs, how could we forget Walt Disney? The name Disney is probably one of the most recognizable in the world. Our favorite childhood cartoon characters, theme parks, merchandise, movies, television networks, and so much more. But how did it all start? Well, it's crazy that it started with the young Walt Disney just drawing horses. As he grew older, Walt tried to get a job at a local newspaper as a cartoonist, and he was rejected. Then he went to work at an art studio, creating advertisements for newspapers and magazines. Later, Disney started making his own commercials and opened up his own animation company. And who was the first character he created? It was Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Clearly, it wasn't Oswald who brought Walt Disney all his luck. Well, that's because the character was owned by Universal Pictures. Once he left Universal Pictures, that's when he created Mickey Mouse, and the mouse turned out to be his lucky charm as Walt Disney became more and more famous with the success of his animation company. But that wasn't enough. Walt Disney was fixated on creating the biggest and greatest theme park in the world, and here we are today. There are 12 Disney parks around the world, and not to mention a whole slew of media and entertainment organizations that are owned by Disney. Walt Disney remains one of the most successful entertainment moguls of all time. Disney is a bit of an entrepreneurial all-star, all because of his commitment to his creative vision and unrelenting spirit. And if we're talking about media moguls, then J.K. Rowling is up there too. Her story is one of those crazy rags to riches situations. She literally started out with nothing to her name and was living on welfare. And today, she is one of the most successful authors and entrepreneurs there is. As the author of the Harry Potter series, Rowling makes a pretty penny out of all things Harry Potter. Think books, merchandise, theme parks, movies, and just about everything in the Potterverse. And frankly, she had run out of ideas before she started writing about the boy wizard in her local pub. Besides making some cool millions off the Harry Potter franchise, in 2012, J.K. Rowling launched a digital media company called Pottermore. This later became Wizarding World Digital in 2019. Today, she is worth more than $1 billion. Not a bad day's work. But this is not even one of the craziest things about her. It's actually the stories that keep surfacing about how she became so rich and famous. Apparently, the author is the president of the Gringotts Wizarding Bank. Of course, this means that we must completely suspend all disbelief, but just crazy for sure. The other crazy story about her success is that J.K. Rowling sold her soul to the devil in exchange for the inspiration for the Harry Potter series. You know you're successful when people just attribute it to the devil, because it makes no sense. However, John Paul DeJoria's tough childhood and youth may come as a surprise to many. Have you ever used a Paul Mitchell hair product? Well, then you know exactly who we are talking about. Businessman John Paul DeJoria is best known for his line of Paul Mitchell hair products and the tequila brand Patron Tequila. And it's no exaggeration when we say that he started right at the bottom to become one of the most recognizable names in the hair and beauty business anywhere in the world. As a first-generation American, DeJoria was born to Italian and German parents. Eventually, he was sent to live in a Los Angeles-based foster home and ended up joining a street gang. But his heart was really in the small business game as opposed to petty crime. Having created his range of hair care products by the name of John Paul Mitchell Systems, he started selling them door to door while he lived out of his car. However, this was not in vain. Today, he makes a cool $900 million a year. That's a crazy move from a foster home to a self-made millionaire. John Paul DeJoria's story of entrepreneurship is such such a great example of the idea that no matter how low you are, things can get better if you work hard and stay focused. And speaking of the beauty business, Madam C.J. Walker's story is as inspirational as it gets. If you missed the Netflix special about her, let's give you a little rundown of who Madam C.J. Walker was. Born in 1867, her family were slaves on a plantation in the state of Louisiana. She was the first of her siblings to be born a free woman. Also known as Sarah Breedlove, this woman's business is one of the most stellar examples of small business entrepreneurship with a focus on a specific niche. Madam C.J. Walker started a line of hair and beauty products that were aimed at Black women and catered to their unique needs. She had the business and marketing acumen to recognize a gap in the market and moved in quickly to fill it. Madam C.J. Walker went on record as the first Black self-made female millionaire. In a way, she could be seen as the predecessor of the female beauty moguls of today that focus on developing products for women of all skin shades. And if going from being the first free woman in the family to becoming a millionaire is not a crazy story, we don't know what is. And lastly, the crazy one himself, Steve Jobs. When you're doing a list that involves the words crazy and entrepreneurs, we just can't afford to leave out the late great Steve Jobs. His story is considered to be one of the craziest startup stories anywhere in the world. Steve Jobs had to drop out of college because his family just couldn't afford it anymore. However, Jobs unofficially continued his audit classes and lived off free meals. He started making some money by returning Coca-Cola bottles, and all this time, Jobs was just building up his creative portfolio and building his business acumen. Soon enough, Steve Jobs began his career and eventually started his Apple computer company with his childhood friend Steve Wozniak. As the company became more successful, he was dubbed the grandfather of digital revolution, and we know today that Jobs changed the entire consumer electronics industry. At the time of his death, Steve was worth more than $8 billion. Besides that, he left behind an indelible impact on the business of technology, music, and culture for generations to come. Oh, and his fashion sense too became the blueprint for the simply dressed yet super successful business leader. That's a wrap for this video. Which of these entrepreneurs is your inspiration? And which one do you think is the craziest? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.